What's up, guys? Welcome to the Kuba Kitchen Journey. Today we are going to review the Pampered Chef non-stick stainless steel, but before we jump into that, I want to kind of show you a little bit of what we use, what our daily drivers are in our kitchen. First up, this is an All-Clad MC2 stainless steel pan. This was my Christmas present to me several years ago from my wife that I bought and then told her about later. We're going to do some comparisons to this because All-Clad is kind of the industry standard when it comes to stainless steel. Second, this is Pampered Chef. They no longer make this. This is non-stick. It's the executive skillet. And we like it because it has the deep edges, so when we're mixing stuff together and we need to feed a lot of people, we will use this pan. Sometimes we'll cook it in other pans and mix it in this pan. It is not dishwasher safe and you cannot use metal in it. This is an older model. And this is the most current technology of Pampered Chef non-stick pans, or skillets, if you will. We're going to do a review on this at a later date and time. This is dishwasher safe. You can use it in the oven. You can use metal in it. And the handle actually comes off of it as well. And so they nest together really nicely. But we're not here to talk about this today. And I don't take that off very often. Today, we are talking about the 10-inch stainless steel non-stick Pampered Chef pan. Now, some of the interesting things that are important to know about stainless steel and whether it's worth it or not to have one that's non-stick and stainless steel is the tri-clad construction of this. So these two pans here, I'm going to set these ones aside. These two pans here are both stainless steel. They're both tri-clad, which means they have aluminum core and they have stainless steel exteriors. They're heavy duty. The great thing about stainless steel is they retain heat really well. So if you have an electric stove or even a gas stove, an electric stove that turns on and off, and every time it turns off, your temperature drops really fast. Or when you have a really nice pan that's nice and hot and you throw a cold piece of steak in there, it immediately cools down really fast. So having a heavy-duty stainless steel pan is really, really important. Also worth knowing that they leave something called fond on the bottom. That's that sticky stuff that sometimes you might think is annoying, and professional chefs are like, this is the greatest thing ever. You can use that to make saucepans, and we're actually going to show a little bit of that later in the video and see how they work. This pan, the MC2, the newer model, is called the D3. This sells, right now it's actually on sale at All-Clad for $99. That comes with the lid. And this pan, this is 12-inch, this pan, which is a 10-inch pan, we actually got for free because my wife did the quick fast-track rewards and we ended up getting it for free. This one retails for $145 with the lid. And you can get the 12-inch version of this, which would be comparable to this, for $210. Some key differences between these pans. A, this one claims to be non-stick. We're going to see how that works out a little bit. This is dishwasher safe. The MC2 is not, but the D3 All-Clad is dishwasher safe. Also worth noting, this one, we're also going to test, says that it has a lip on it that you can pour liquid out of, and it will not spill all over the place. And so that's a nice advantage to this. This one, the lid can also go in the oven. In terms of the All-Clad, the lids are not oven safe. So we're going to go over some of these different features. We're going to test them out. We're going to show you, and we're going to let you know whether we think this pan right here is worth the $145 they put on it or the $210 for the 12-inch version. So the first thing that we wanted to test out was the reaction. That is, how fast will our pan warm up? Different pans have different levels of clad. They have different weights. It's hard to compare these two exactly based on weight because one is a 12-inch pan and one is a 10-inch pan. Now, the best way to do this would probably be to just take one of those little one of those little thermometers and point it at it and see how long it takes to warm up. Now, we didn't have one, so what we decided to do was to take a piece of ice that was 3.5 ounces and put it on the pan and put it on the burner and determine how long it takes for that piece of ice to melt. We left the burner on during both these to make sure that the heat was exactly the same. What we found here was our All-Clad pan actually warmed up quite a bit faster. Now, you could make an argument that the surface space was different. There's certainly variables at play because of the different size pan. But in all, the All-Clad pan took 2 minutes and 26 seconds to get hot enough to completely melt the ice. The Pampered Chef pan took 3 minutes and 13 seconds. So you can take that information and do with it what you will, but we wanted to test that out and see what would happen and how fast it would take for these to warm up. Next, we wanted to see what the retention was. One of the values of a stainless steel pan is that it retains heat. As I mentioned, when the heat turns off and on, it can have a huge impact on your food. What's more, when you take a cold piece of meat and put it onto a hot pan, it can make a really big impact if the heat all dissipates really, really fast. So what we decided to do was the same sort of test. We took 3.5 ounces of ice, we heated up the pan for exactly 5 minutes on medium heat, we turned off the heat, and then we put a piece of ice on it and see how long it would take to melt. Now here we see these pans actually interacted in very much the same way. The All-Clad pan took 2 minutes and 55 seconds for that ice to completely melt, while the Pampered Chef pan took 2 minutes and 58 seconds. So in terms of heat retention, based on this experiment, what we've seen is that it's pretty similar. So when you take a hunkin' piece of meat and you put it onto one of these pans, you're going to have the similar effect between both of them in terms of how much heat immediately is taken away. Now, one of the things that I mentioned before is that the Pampered Chef pan has a fluted rim. That is something that makes it much easier to pour. And so we did a little experiment. I wanted to see how this played out. This is a feature that could be really important for certain people. So we just took some water and put it in each of the pans and took time to pour it out. Now, I'm not sure why Pampered Chef or why All-Clad doesn't have rims like this. If you go up to the DC5, which is a 5-clad pan for All-Clad, it will have those rims on it that will prevent water from pouring out and sticking to the pan. As you can see in our test here, this version, which is the MC2, which has the same layout as the newer DC3, you can see water clearly does cling to the side of the pan and fall down. Now, if you pour water pretty fast, or if you pour out the greases, or if you pour out whatever you're pouring out pretty fast, it's not going to be an issue. I've never noticed that. But the Pampered Chef pan really wins in this department. And after all, this is the pan that we're reviewing today. If this is a benefit for you, that's definitely a big score when compared to something like the All-Clad, which, as I said earlier, is kind of the standard, industry standard for stainless steel pans. The next thing we want to do was move on to cooking. Now, I should note that we did no oven tests with this pan. As I noted before, the Pampered Chef pan and the All-Clad can both go in the oven. However, the lid for the Pampered Chef pan can, while the lid for the All-Clad pan cannot. So that's a pretty big win. If you're trying to braise something and move it from the stove in the oven and you want to keep it covered, you can do that. I will say that I'm assuming because of the non-stick surface on this, the Pampered Chef pan can only be heated up to 500 degrees and is not broiler safe. Whereas the All-Clad pan can be heated up to 600 degrees. For most of us, that's not going to make a big difference, but if you're trying to make something really, really hot, that might be important to you. The next test that we wanted to experiment with was cooking eggs. Now, cooking eggs on stainless steel is not something that you're probably ever going to do. So for the sake of this test, we first wanted to see what it would do on a pan that we would typically use to make eggs, and that is the Pampered Chef non-stick skillet. Now, we are not reviewing this today, but all of these experiments are done without oil. As you can see here, as we're making the eggs inside of the non-stick skillet, it doesn't stick. It moves around really well. Now, I personally would never make eggs without butter, but if you're in a position where you want to make eggs without butter, you can do it with this skillet. The reason I wanted to compare this is because Pampered Chef calls this a non-stick pan. And so if they're going to call it a non-stick pan, I wanted to see how it would perform under the same circumstances as the non-stick skillet. You can see here that it didn't work. It was pretty abysmal, actually. Now, if you used oil, the story might be a little bit different. But for our sake, for what we were seeing, it stuck miserably. If you scrambled it, it would have been a mess. It would have gone completely everywhere and just wouldn't have worked whatsoever. So if you're going to try to do this, just understand that when they say non-stick, they don't mean nonstick in the way that they mean they're nonstick skillets. In fact, if you read through their descriptions, they'll say that this is meant to be used with oil. You can also see here that we tried to do the same thing with our stainless steel pan. Now, I didn't need to do this test. I knew exactly what would happen. And as you watch this video, you will see exactly what will happen. So I will say this as a defense of Pampered Chef. Compared to the All-Clad stainless steel, which has no claims of being non-stick, the Pampered Chef did perform a little bit better in not sticking to the eggs. And as we neared the end of the experiment with the eggs, we decided that we wanted to deglaze the pans with water. I was really impressed with how well the Pampered Chef pan worked. I had it up at pretty high heat. There was a lot of eggs stuck on the bottom, and I just went ahead and I dumped about 1.5 cups of water in there, scraped the bottom, and everything released super easily, which is what you want to see in a stainless steel pan. For those at home who are thinking that non-stick stainless steel is really attractive, the reality is most stainless steel works like that. In fact, I did the exact same thing with the All-Clad pan. And as you can see, when I dumped the water on it and I scraped the bottom, everything came off super easily. In fact, when I went over and took them to the sink and wiped it out with a rag, it wasn't any more work to clean the stuck-off gooiness from the All-Clad pan as it was for the Pampered Chef pan. So the attractiveness of calling it non-stick and easy to clean, I get, and maybe that's attractive to you. But as far as I'm concerned, my experience with a regular stainless steel pan is not all that different. Moving on to the next aspect of our experiment, the thing that we really enjoy using a stainless steel pan for: steak. None of us are regularly going to cook eggs in stainless steel. That's why we have non-stick pans. So what we did here is we preheated the oil on high heat, and some people have different opinions about the smoke point of olive oil. I recently watched a video that actually said scientifically the smoke point doesn't really matter that much. So if you're watching this video and you're going, oh man, it went above the smoke point, maybe I'll just link it. I'll link in the description the video that I watched on olive oil. I usually either cook with olive oil or with butter. Now what you can see here in this video is we preheated it on high heat and stepped away for a while and came back and we began to sear the steak. This is a typical round steak. We don't have a whole lot of really expensive steaks in our family. The reason I added oil at all is because there really wasn't any fat in this. If I was cooking a ribeye or a steak that had a lot of marbling, I probably wouldn't use oil at all. And what this experiment is set to show us is how much fond is left in the pan and what kind of sear is brought on the meat. Now, as you can see here, the Pampered Chef pan performed admirably well. It went to high heat, we threw it on, you can see it sizzle, it smokes, we flipped it after 3 minutes, and you can see the sear on the meat looks fantastic. And you can look at the fond after it's all said and done. I went ahead and dumped a little bit of cooking wine in there, and I stirred it around, and I dumped that out on top of the meat, and all of the fond came out really well. It didn't stick, it didn't have any problems with it. Something that you'll note a little bit when we go to wash is that the oil residue was a big problem for the Pampered Chef pan. In their defense, they will say that you are not supposed to do this on high heat. The Pampered Chef pan is designed, you put oil in it and you leave it on medium to medium high heat, and then you cook your meat on it. If you do it on high heat, it will allow that oil to just turn gummy. When we moved on to the All-Clad pan, it performed exactly as it has every time I've ever used this pan. Got a beautiful sear. We cooked it a little bit on both sides. The oil didn't burn as much. It preheated about the same amount of time. However, the size of the pan may have had some impact on that, and so we're working in that variable as well. As you can see, the sear is absolutely amazing, and of course the fond, or that stuff that's stuck on the bottom, was beautiful. Did the same thing, dumped in a little cooking oil, stirred it around, and then poured it on top of the steak. Here you can see the two steaks side by side. The smaller one that you see on the left is for Pampered Chef. The larger one that you see on the right is for All-Clad. The steaks themselves both tasted amazing, and in fact we ate quite a bit of it before we finished recording our video. Now, the big thing is when we went to actually clean these pans. I deglazed both the pans with the cooking oil and set them aside. Normally I'd clean them when they're still relatively hot because it makes it easier to clean, but I set them aside just to see how the cleaning process would work. I'll start with the All-Clad one because it went as expected. After it was deglazed, we took a little bit of soap. I scrubbed it down with our brush, and then I went in with this sponge and cleaned it out, and everything just came out the way that it always does. Super easy to clean. Now, what one would assume is that the Pampered Chef pan would work about the same way. And there's probably a pretty good chance that if I didn't put it on high heat, and if I didn't allow the oil to overcook, or if I didn't do all of those steps in the process, it probably would have come out just fine. Now I'm holding this pan right here, and there are still black marks. If you look at a Pampered Chef pan, you'll notice it has this hexagon pattern, and there's these little bits of stainless steel that stick through that's designed to sear the food, and all the black stuff on here is designed to be non-stick. What happens when you overcook is you get these black marks, and you can no longer see the stainless steel sticking through. And it's going to take quite a bit of scrubbing and quite a bit of work to get this back to where it's supposed to be. Now, one could argue, if I just would have done it right, none of this would have been a problem. But here's the deal. We're all amateurs. Well, most of us are amateurs in the kitchen. We're probably going to screw up. I could do the exact same thing with this All-Clad skillet. I could set it on the stove. I could put a little bit of oil in it. I could leave it there for a half hour. I could leave it there for 45 minutes. I could deglaze the pan, and I could clean it pretty easily. So that's kind of a demerit for the Pampered Chef. So as we evaluate exactly whether this is worth it or not, there's definitely some pros that are going for it. It has an oven-safe lid, while the All-Clad does not. It does have it has non-riveted handles. Now, I haven't had this long enough to know whether that's an advantage or a disadvantage. The reason All-Clad does it is because it's sturdy and holds a lot of weight. We'll see how this holds up over time, but that does mean that cleaning the inside definitely makes it easier. This is dishwasher safe. Now, while the D3 is dishwasher safe, the MC2 that I have isn't. Dishwasher safe has never been a huge deal for us because most of our pans we wash by hand because we use them all the time. It is worth noting that this has a lifetime warranty. Now, my MC2 pan I bought used, which means it doesn't have a lifetime warranty for me. Or if you go to All-Clad's website and you buy seconds, which have some factory defaults, those won't have a lifetime warranty. This comes with a lifetime warranty. So if anything happens to it, I mentioned the rivets, not having rivets. If this handle does fall off, Pampered Chef is going to replace it for free. So the big question comes, is this worth it? The 10-inch pan of the Pampered Chef goes for $145, while the 12-inch goes for $210. The D3 right now, All-Clad's new one is on sale for $99, but it typically goes for $179, while the 12-inch is $129 and typically goes for $229. So in price, it's pretty comparable. Where the Pampered Chef pan, I think, really shines is what's coming up in January. If those things that I mentioned about the rivets not being there and you being able to pour, or the non-stick novelty is appealing, then yeah, this might be worth it to you. At full price, it wouldn't be worth it to me. But here's the deal. My wife's a consultant. I got it for free. We can get these as discounts as a consultant. Or if someone hosts a party, they can always get it for 50 to 60% off. Or if someone hosts a party in January of 2021, this pan you can get with the lid for $58 if you sell $650. Or you can get the 12-inch for $84. At that price, I think it'd be worth it to me. In fact, my wife and I are talking about whether I want to host a party and get one just so we have a similar lineup. All in all, it's going to come down to what you see value in. On the day-to-day, regular, full-price pan, I would probably go All-Clad every day of the week. But if you're able to shop around, or if you're able to get a deal, if you're able to get a great host discount, then the Pampered Chef pan is worth it. The important thing to remember is just to make sure that you treat it the way that the instructions say it's supposed to be treated. Don't put it on super high heat. Don't spray it. Never spray this. In fact, you shouldn't spray stainless steel either, but definitely never spray something that's non-stick. It gets gummy. It gets gross. I hope you guys found that useful. And hey, if you liked it, make sure that you like this, make sure you subscribe, make sure you share the video. And if you want to get this pan for cheaper, I mean, host a party in January 2021, and you can get it for 58 bucks, which I say is a really good deal. Hope that was useful to you. Glad you guys have tuned in and stuck around. And hey, we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.